Sergeant Mason Hale moved carefully across the cracked ground of Kalos, feeling the soft tremble of unstable stone beneath each step. The moon had once been famous for its nebula mines, beautiful glowing clouds of gas that drifted through the night sky like slow rivers of color. Now the only light came from burning wreckage and broken machinery that sparked at random intervals. The long war between humans and the Visari had turned the place into little more than a graveyard of metal and dust. Mason had been in the military long enough to stop being surprised by ruins, but something about Kalos bothered him. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the strange sense that the air itself watched him. Or maybe it was the fact that the ceasefire between humans and Visari had only been set 6 hours ago, and nobody trusted it. Behind him, the rest of his patrol squad spread out across the ruined mining settlement. Their helmets glowed with blue HUD lights. Their rifles were held low but ready. Command had ordered them to sweep the area for any leftover hazards or wounded survivors. The Visari had been given the same task on the opposite side of the settlement. Each group was supposed to stay on their half and avoid any contact. In theory, this would reduce tension. In reality, it only made everyone more nervous. Mason moved toward a collapsed storage structure. Its roof had fallen inward, forming a triangle of broken beams and sharp stone fragments. He tapped the side of his helmet. "Hail to squad," he said. "I'm reaching the old generator hut. Structural damage looks bad. I'm going to check for movement." "Copy," replied Lieutenant Armin. "Stay alert. No hero moves. No crossing lines. The Visari are close on their side." "Understood," Mason said. He approached the ruin slowly. Dust drifted through the air in thin, shimmering clouds. The smell of burned plastic and something sharp like hot minerals made him wrinkle his nose. He swept his flashlight across the interior. It was quiet, still, empty. He prepared to turn back, but then he heard it. A soft sound. Not like machinery, not like settling stone. Something small. Something breathing. Mason frowned and stepped closer. "Is someone there?" The sound stopped, then started again, quicker this time. Nervous, like a tiny gasp, Mason knelt and angled his light deeper into the rubble. At first, he saw only dust and shadows. Then something shifted behind a broken panel. A shape, small, curled in on itself. He felt a twist in his chest. "Don't move," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." Slowly, carefully, he moved a piece of metal aside. Light spilled into the pocket of space beneath the rubble, and Mason finally saw the truth. It was a child, but not a human child. A Visari youngling no older than 5 or 6 human years sat trembling among the broken stones. Its skin was pale silver with soft dark patterns that looked almost painted. 2 small horns curved from the top of its head, and its bright violet eyes stared up at him. Wide with fear, Mason froze. Protocol said he should withdraw immediately and report the sighting. Touching an enemy youngling, even during a ceasefire, could cause diplomatic trouble. He could be accused of kidnapping or aggression. A single mistake might break the fragile peace that both sides desperately needed. But the child made a tiny, frightened noise and flinched away from a shifting beam overhead. Mason felt something solid settle inside him. War or no war. Ceasefire or no ceasefire. A child was a child. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm going to help you." The youngling stared at him without blinking. Its hands were shaking. One leg was twisted at a painful angle. It couldn't walk. It couldn't escape. If the structure collapsed any further, it wouldn't survive. Mason leaned in slowly so he wouldn't scare the child. "I'm going to lift you out, all right? I need you to trust me." The child didn't understand his words. Visari language was completely different, but it seemed to understand the tone. It stared at him for a long moment. Then, hesitantly, it reached its small hand toward him. Mason's heart clenched. He reached forward, and the ground began to shake. A deep rumble rolled through the ruined settlement. Loose stones bounced. Metal beams creaked. Mason's instincts screamed. "Quake!" he shouted through comms. "Everyone clear out. The structures are unstable." He didn't wait for a reply. He grabbed the child with both arms, turned his body, and shielded them as the first piece of the ceiling came crashing down. The impact hit his back hard. knocking the breath from his lungs. Dust exploded everywhere. The world became a storm of gray and metal screams. Mason curled around the child, pressing it against his armor to protect its small body. Another beam fell. He felt it slam into his shoulder plate, then slide off. Pain shot through him, sharp and hot, but he didn't let go. "Stay down," he gasped, though he knew the youngling couldn't understand. The ground trembled again, but the collapse slowed. A final cloud of dust drifted across him, settling like ash. Mason coughed, blinking grit from his eyes. "Kid, you okay?" The youngling looked up at him, wide-eyed but alive. It made a small sound, confused, almost questioning. Then, to Mason's surprise, it pressed a tiny hand against his chest plate, as if checking he was real. "It's all right," Mason said, voice low. "You're safe. I've got you." He shifted and tried to stand. Pain flared along his ribs, but he managed to get to one knee. He cradled the child carefully and stepped out from beneath the collapsed structure. His squad rushed toward him from the far side of the street. "Hale, are you hurt?" one of them called out. "I'm fine," Mason said. "Kid needs medical help." Visari side should. Before he could finish, armored footsteps echoed from across the settlement. Visari soldiers, 6 of them, tall, sharp-featured, their armor marked with blue tribal lines. They stopped the moment they saw Mason holding the child. Mason froze. His squad froze. The air turned electric. Every human in the area knew what this looked like. A human soldier, covered in dust, gripping a Visari youngling. No one could see the collapsed roof behind him. No one knew he had saved the child, and the Visari soldiers were already raising their weapons. "Wait," Mason started. The youngling beat him to it. It reached out one tiny silver hand toward the Visari soldiers, then pointed at Mason. One of the Visari stepped forward, lowering her helmet mask. Her eyes widened when she saw the child's condition. She spoke quickly in her language, her voice sharp with disbelief. Another soldier moved closer and scanned the rubble behind Mason. They exchanged rapid words. Then, slowly, one by one, the Visari lowered their weapons. Their leader took 2 steps toward Mason. Her posture changed, not aggressive, not hostile, but something else. Something almost respectful. She extended her arms, palms open, a gesture of peace in their culture. Mason understood the meaning even without knowing the words. He stepped forward and gently handed the child to her. The youngling clung to Mason's armor for one last second before letting go. The Visari leader held the child close, examining him carefully. When she looked back at Mason, there was a strange emotion in her eyes, something deep, unreadable, almost ceremonial. She said a single phrase in Visari. Mason didn't understand it, but her tone, her posture, her gaze, it felt like she was declaring something important, something that would change everything. Before he could speak or ask what she meant, his squad leader touched his shoulder. "Hale," Lieutenant Armin whispered. "I think you just started something we don't understand." Mason watched the alien soldiers carry the youngling away, their movements slow and solemn. He didn't know it yet, but this simple act shielding a child was about to echo far beyond the ruins of Kaelos. The medbay built on the edge of the ceasefire line was a strange place, half human technology, half Visari design. Emergency tents stood side by side, their lights mixing blue and orange in a soft glow. Human and Visari guards watched each other from a distance, trying not to stare too hard, trying not to let old fear crawl up and start a fight that both sides desperately wanted to avoid. Sergeant Mason Hale sat on a metal cot inside one of the human tents, his ribs wrapped, his shoulder bruised, and his mind full of questions. A medic had checked him twice already, but the ache in his chest didn't worry him as much as the memory in his head. He kept seeing the small Visari child looking up at him, trusting him. It felt unreal. Humans and Visari had been enemies for so long that even seeing one up close usually made people tense, but holding that child, protecting it, it felt natural, as if the war had disappeared for a moment. Mason didn't know what the Visari soldiers had said before leaving the ruins. He didn't know why their leader had looked at him with such strange intensity. But he knew one thing. Something important had happened. Something the Visari understood. And he didn't. Lieutenant Armin stood near the tent entrance, arms crossed, watching Mason with a tight jaw. "You know this could turn into a problem," Armin said finally. Mason sighed. "I didn't do anything wrong." "No," Armin admitted. "But the Visari might see it differently. Or Command might. Saving a child is fine. But the way the Visari reacted? That's the part I don't like." Mason frowned. "What do you mean?" "They weren't scared," Armin said. "They looked shocked. They looked respectful." "And that's a bad thing?" Mason asked. Armin didn't answer immediately. He stared toward the Visari side of the camp. "It means they think something happened, something symbolic." A soft alarm beeped at the entrance. A human soldier stepped inside. "Lieutenant, Visari delegation approaching. Unarmed. They're requesting permission to enter our side of the line." Armin straightened. "A delegation? Already?" "Yes, sir." Armin turned to Mason. "Stay here. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. Don't even breathe wrong. I wasn't planning to." Mason muttered. The lieutenant left. Mason tried to relax, but his nerves buzzed under his skin. He stood and paced slowly, ignoring the twinge in his ribs. Minutes later, Armin returned, followed by 3 Vesari soldiers in ceremonial armor. Their armor was different from battle gear. Smooth plates, deep blue symbols painted across their chest, and long cloth sashes that hung from their waists. They moved with quiet confidence, like people who were used to being obeyed. And then she entered, the alien mother. The Visari woman who stepped through the tent opening was tall, almost a head taller than Mason. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the light, and her long dark horns curved outwards with graceful arcs. She carried no weapons, yet her presence was stronger than any armed soldier Mason had ever seen. Her eyes, bright violet, focused on Mason instantly. She walked forward. Everyone else in the tent instinctively stepped aside. Mason swallowed. "You must be the child's mother?" Armin shot him a glare, as if warning him not to talk, but the Visari woman spoke first. "Yes," she said in surprisingly clear English. Her voice was low, steady, almost melodic. "I am Vesh-Kara, High Matriarch of Clan Veshel." "Kara," Mason blinked. A High Matriarch? He had saved the child of one of the most respected leaders in the Visari hierarchy. No wonder the soldiers had reacted strangely. Vesh-Kara studied him with slow, careful eyes. "Sergeant Mason Hale," she said, pronouncing his name perfectly. "The protector of my youngling." Mason froze. "Protector?" Vesh-Kara nodded once. "Yes, you shielded him with your body. You saved his life when the stones fell. And you did so without hesitation." Her voice deepened, becoming almost ceremonial. "Among the Visari, such an act is sacred." Mason felt Armin stiffen beside him. "Matriarch, with respect, our soldier acted on instinct. There was no intention of—" Vesh-Kara raised a hand gently. "I know the difference between intention and instinct, Lieutenant. And I honor both. I know the difference between intention. Lover. I honor both." She turned her eyes back to Mason. "In our culture," she said softly, "when someone shields a youngling, they are bound to that child's family. It is not ownership. It is not control. It is recognition, protection, respect." She stepped closer. "You are now Sahatel." Mason frowned. "What does that mean?" Vesh-Kara's voice grew warm. "One who is claimed as ally by the heart." Armin exhaled sharply. "Claimed? What exactly does that mean?" "I need clarity for command." Vesh-Kara looked at him calmly. "It means Sergeant Hale has earned the right to be welcomed into my family's protection and trust. A bond of honor, not force." She paused, then added, "And I have come to acknowledge that bond properly." Mason blinked again. "Acknowledge? How?" At this, one of the Visari guards stepped forward and extended a small, glowing object, an oval stone that pulsed with soft blue light. Vesh-Kara took it, then turned toward Mason. By our laws, I must offer you the Stone of Binding, she said, a symbol that you are a trusted protector. You may refuse it, and the honor remains. But if you accept it, our clans become tied. Allies in spirit. Mason stared at the glowing stone. Armin whispered urgently, "Do not accept anything yet. We need to understand the consequences. Command will have my head if you—" But Veshkara didn't move closer. She simply held the stone in her hands, waiting with quiet patience. "Sergeant," she said, "this is not a trap. It is gratitude and acknowledgement." She looked almost vulnerable, as if worried he might reject the gesture. Mason's heart tightened. He didn't understand all the details of Visari culture, but he understood sincerity when he saw it. He had saved her child, and she was trying, in her own way, to show respect. "I don't know what accepting it fully means," Mason said honestly, "but I'm not rejecting the idea." Veshkara's eyes brightened slightly. "Then you are wise." She lowered the stone. "You do not need to choose now. The choice is yours alone. When you are ready, a representative will guide you." Mason nodded slowly. "All right." A quiet moment passed. Then Veshkara's expression softened further. "My son, Tariq, is recovering. When he wakes fully, he will ask for you." Mason felt a strange warmth in his chest. "I'd like to check on him when it's allowed." "It will be allowed," Veshkara said. "You saved him. He sees you as safety." Her next words came gently, but with great meaning. "And so do I." Armin shifted uncomfortably, not sure what to say. Veshkara stepped back, her guards moving with her. Before leaving, she bowed her head once toward Mason, an action that made every human soldier in the tent gasp quietly. A Visari high matriarch bowing to a human? That had never happened. When she left, the tent felt 10 times quieter. Armin rubbed his face and let out a long breath. "Mason," he said, "you just got adopted by aliens." "It's not adoption," Mason muttered. "Well, whatever it is," Armin replied. "Command is going to panic." But Mason barely heard him. His mind replayed Veshkara's words. One who is claimed as ally by the heart. He hadn't meant to start anything. He hadn't meant to break protocol. He had only tried to save a child. Now the future of 2 species might shift because of it. And deep inside, Mason felt a calm certainty. Whatever this bond was, he wasn't afraid of it. Not anymore. Morning on Kalos came slowly, as if the broken moon struggled to rise into its own sky. The nebula clouds glowed faint blue over the horizon, giving the entire ceasefire camp a soft and almost peaceful look if one ignored the heavy weapons, the armored guards, and the constant tension in the air. Sergeant Mason Hale sat near the edge of the human sector, watching Visari workers repair a damaged energy relay on their side. He could see their gestures clearly, hear their low humming language drifting in the air. For the first time in years, humans and Visari were close enough to watch each other without pointing weapons. Yet every human soldier around Mason was restless. The events of yesterday had spread through the camp like fast wind. Mason saving a Visari child, the high matriarch bowing to him, and the mysterious title she gave him, Sahatel. Most of the humans didn't know what it meant, but everyone understood one thing. Mason had become important. Too important. He tried to ignore the staring eyes from both sides. He tried to ignore the pressure. But the strange feeling in his chest only grew stronger when he thought of the child Tariq. A soft beep sounded on his wrist communicator. "Message. Report to Visari Medbay. Matriarch Veshkara requests your presence." Mason blinked. "She wants to see me already?" Lieutenant Armin appeared behind him. "Yeah. She also sent a message to command. They approved the visit. But they also want you to wear a body cam. They're cautious." Mason sighed. "Figures." Armin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Look, Hale. Just be careful. You're the bridge right now. One wrong word could twist everything." Mason nodded. But inside, he wasn't nervous about seeing the Visari. He was nervous about what he represented now, without meaning to. Two human guards escorted Mason to the Visari medical area. The moment he crossed the boundary, the air changed. It felt warmer, more humid. Soft blue lights glowed from tall biocrystal pillars. The Visari tents curved like shells, shaped with gentle lines instead of hard corners. Inside one, a healer with smooth silver skin approached him. "Sergeant Hale," she said in accented English. "Matriarch Veshkara is waiting. Please follow." See, Mason stepped inside a larger room, and there he saw Tariq. The child sat on a cushioned bed, wrapped in soft cloth, his small horns polished clean. His left leg was bandaged, but he looked awake and alert. The moment Tariq saw Mason, his bright violet eyes widened. He made a soft chirping sound, a Vasari expression of joy, and reached both arms toward Mason. Mason smiled without meaning to. "Hey, buddy." Tariq leaned forward, wanting to be carried. Veshkara, who stood beside the bed, gave a gentle nod. "You may hold him. He trusts you." Mason approached carefully and lifted Tariq. The youngling curled against his chest immediately, small hands clutching Mason's uniform as if afraid he might disappear. A warm feeling spread through Mason, simple and honest. "He seems better," Mason said. "He is," Veshkara replied. "He asked for you the moment he woke." Mason looked at her. "I'm glad he's okay." Veshkara studied him with soft eyes. "You are not like most humans I have met. You have kindness in your instinct." Mason shrugged, embarrassed. "I just did what anyone should do." "No," Veshkara said softly. "Many would not." She motioned for him to sit. Mason sat beside Tariq's bed, the child still holding on to him. Veshkara remained standing, hands clasped. "There is something I must tell you," she said. "Something important." Mason looked up, suddenly alert. Veshkara took a slow breath. "The war between our species. It is not what it seems. The front lines, the attacks, the raids, they were changed. Manipulated." Mason frowned. "Manipulated? By who?" Veshkara's voice dropped lower. "By those who profit from war." A small chill traveled down Mason's spine. "I don't understand," he said. "You will," she replied. "But first, you must see something." She gestured to one of her guards. The guard activated a holoscreen. A map of star systems appeared, human and Visari zones marked in different colors. Veshkara approached the hologram and pointed to several blinking red points. "These attacks," she said, "were blamed on my people. But our ships were never there." Mason leaned forward. "Then who attacked?" Veshkara's eyes darkened. "A third force. A mercenary network that steals old ships, disguises them, and sends them to attack both our sides. They create fear. Fear creates anger. Anger creates war." Mason felt his stomach twist. "But why would anyone want to keep the war going?" Veshkara turned her gaze to him. "Because war makes money. War makes weapons valuable. And war keeps two powerful species too busy fighting each other to notice the real enemy." Tariq whimpered softly and pressed closer to Mason's chest. Mason instinctively held the child securely, his mind racing. "If this is true," Mason said slowly, "both our governments are making decisions based on lies." "Yes," Veshkara said, "and someone wants it to stay that way." Before Mason could ask more, an alarm sounded outside. Visari guards snapped to alert positions. Voices rose in rapid alien words. Veshkara's posture stiffened. A guard rushed inside. "Matriarch. Human command requests immediate meeting. They say there has been an attack on both sides of the camp." Mason stood at once. "An attack? Here?" "Yes," the guard said, "and both sides believe the other fired first." Mason's heart dropped. That kind of misunderstanding could break the ceasefire in seconds. Tariq clutched Mason's shirt, sensing the tension. "We need to move," Mason said. "We need to stop this." Veshkara nodded. "Agreed. But before we go, Sergeant Hale, I must ask you something." He looked at her. "Ask anything." Her voice softened. "Do you trust me?" Mason met her eyes. The Visari were once his enemies. He had been trained to fear them, to fight them. But Veshkara had shown nothing but truth, care, and honesty. And her son trusted him completely. "Yes," Mason said finally, "I trust you." A faint, relieved smile touched her lips. "Then come. We must show both sides what is really happening." Outside the tents, chaos had begun. Human soldiers and Visari warriors lined up on opposite sides of the cracked ground, shouting orders, raising weapons, pointing fingers at each other. Smoke drifted from a damaged turret on the human side and a scorched wall on the Visari side. Mason pushed through the crowd with Veshkara beside him. "Hold fire!" he shouted. Everyone calmed down, but soldiers didn't calm easily. Fear and confusion lit the air like sparks. Armin rushed toward Mason. "Hail, where were you?" "Human scouts say Visari artillery hit our turret." "It wasn't us," Veshkara said sharply. A Visari commander pointed at the humans. "Your weapon fired first." "No, it didn't," Armin shot back. Mason stepped between them. "Everyone stop. Look at the damage. It's too clean, too precise. Someone wants this fight to happen, but no one was listening." Tension crackled. Fingers tightened on triggers. Veshkara stepped beside Mason. "Sergeant," she whispered, "if you speak, they will listen. You are the Sahatel, a symbol of trust between us." Mason looked at her, at Tariq's small hand holding his shirt, at the soldiers ready to fire. Then he stepped forward and shouted, "Stand down, all of you." His voice carried with surprising force. Humans froze. Visari paused. Mason continued, breathing hard. "This isn't an attack from either side. This is sabotage. The matriarch showed me proof there's a third force trying to keep this war alive." Armin frowned. "Hale, you better explain." "I will," Mason said. "But first, everyone needs to lower their weapons." It took long, tense seconds. But one by one, rifles lowered, arm cannons powered down, voices quieted. Veshkara stood tall beside him, her presence calm and steady. In that moment, standing between two armies, holding a Visari child close, Mason realized something important. He wasn't just a human soldier anymore. He had become a bridge, whether he wanted to or not, and the next steps he took would change everything. The ceasefire camp fell into a heavy silence after Mason's shout. Human and Visari soldiers stared at him, surprised by the strength in his voice. Even the dust-filled wind seemed to stop for a moment, waiting to see what would happen next. Tariq clung to Mason's chest, small and trembling. The youngling didn't understand politics or sabotage or war. All he knew was that this human kept him safe, and the way every Visari warrior looked at Mason, even the suspicious ones, showed that they had noticed the simple truth too. Veshkara took one step forward, standing tall and calm beside Mason. Her presence alone helped steady the tension. "We will listen," she said loudly so both sides could hear. "Let the human sergeant speak. He carries the truth." Armin glanced at Mason, uncertain but trusting. "Go on, Hale." Mason took a deep breath. His ribs still hurt, his shoulder burned, and the weight of Tariq in his arms reminded him how fragile peace could be. But he pushed the pain aside and raised his voice. "Everyone look at the damage," he said. "It's too perfect. One hit on each side. No follow-up shots. No missing blasts. Whoever did this didn't want to destroy us. They wanted to make us angry." A few soldiers exchanged glances. A Visari warrior shouted, "How can you be certain?" Mason pointed at the scorched marks on the Visari wall. "Humans don't use that type of energy pattern." Then he pointed at the damaged human turret. "And Visari don't use that kind of burn signature." Veshkara nodded. Both attacks were made with stolen or disguised weapons. Not human. Not Visari. Armin frowned. "You're saying mercenaries? Here? On Kalos?" "Yes," Veshkara replied. "They want to break the ceasefire before it grows stronger." Murmurs spread across both groups. Doubt. Confusion. Worry, Mason continued. "Matriarch Veshkara has proof. I saw it myself. Someone's been attacking both sides for years, just enough to keep us fighting." A human soldier shouted, Why would they do that? Because war equals profit, Mason said. Because if humans and Visari stay enemies, we won't ask harder questions. A wave of shock and anger rolled through the crowd, but it wasn't anger at each other this time. It was anger at whoever had played them for so long. Armin finally stepped forward beside Mason. All right, he said loudly. If what Hale says is true, then we need a joint investigation. Humans and Visari, working together. Lees, a Visari commander, folded his arms. Together? After all this time? Veshikara answered calmly. Yes, the enemy wants us divided. Working together is the only way to find the truth. Mason felt hope rise in his chest, fragile, but real. For the first time since the war began, humans and Visari looked at each other with more suspicion for the unknown enemy than for each other. But peace never arrived easily. A sharp alarm sounded from the sky. Everyone looked up. A fleet of ships dropped out of the clouds, small, fast, and painted in dull gray. Not human. Not Visari. Their engines flickered with stolen tech from both species. Armin cursed. The mercenaries. They're making their move. Veshkara growled softly, a low, protective sound. They want to destroy the camp and blame one of us. The ships split into two groups, half heading toward the human camp, half toward the Visari side. Mason didn't think. He acted. Everyone take cover, he shouted. Humans and Visari defend both sides. No one fights alone. The first wave of blasts slammed into the ground, sending dust and debris flying. Human and Visari soldiers rolled behind barriers. Some sharing the same piece of cover for the first time in history. Armin shouted orders to human squads. Veshkara began giving commands in sharp Visari tones. Her guards formed a protective circle around Tariq. Mason crouched, shielding the youngling with his body again. Stay down, Tariq. I've got you. The child pressed his head against Mason's chest, trusting him completely. Above them, mercenary ships circled for another attack. They'll destroy everything, a human soldier yelled. No, Mason said firmly, standing even as explosions shook the ground. Not if we fight together. He handed Tariq to a Visari guard, then turned to the crowd. Humans, Visari, aim at the ships together. Let them see we're not their puppets. For one heartbeat, everything paused. Then human rifles and Visari plasma cannons fired at the same time. Blue and red beams filled the sky in a powerful combined volley. The nearest mercenary ship took a direct hit to its engine and spiraled out of control, crashing into the distant hills. Another ship tried to swing around, but a Visari energy burst from Veshkara, and a human turret blast met it mid-air, knocking it apart in a brilliant explosion. We're hitting them, a young human shouted. Do not let them escape, a Visari warrior cried. Mason fired his rifle at a ship weaving between the clouds. Armin hit it with a guided rocket. The Visari joined with their precision fire, and the ship erupted in a flash of light. One by one, the mercenary ships fell or retreated, unable to face a united force. Within minutes, the remaining ships jumped into the sky and disappeared. Silence fell across the battlefield. Not tense silence. Not angry silence. A different kind. The silence of people realizing they had just fought on the same side. Visari soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Human soldiers did the same. The air felt lighter. The fear between both groups was still there, but something stronger had taken its place. Respect. Recognition. Possibility. Veshkara approached Mason, her silver skin glowing faintly under the nebula clouds. You saved my son, she said softly. But today, you saved far more. Mason shook his head. We all fought together. That's what mattered. No, she insisted. Without you, the two sides would have blamed each other. The mercenaries would have succeeded. You were the bridge they could not break. Armin walked up beside them. Command wants to speak with you, Hale. With both of us. Probably the Visari too. Veshkara smiled gently. Then let them come. There is much to discuss. There is much to discuss. Tariq waddled back to Mason and lifted his arms. Mason crouched and lifted the child easily. Tariq chirped happily, touching Mason's face with his small hand. Veshkara watched them with warm eyes. He sees you as family now, Mason swallowed. You are Sahatel, she said softly. Protector. One, claimed as ally by the heart. Claimed as ally. Claimed as ally. Mason looked around at human soldiers talking with Visari warriors, at shared relief, at the beginning of something new. What happens now? He asked. Veshkara stepped forward, lifting her chin proudly. Now, Sergeant Mason Hale of Earth. We start something greater than war. She extended her hand. Mason took it without hesitation. The nebula sunrise cresting over Kalos lit both human and Visari faces with the same light. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a door opening. And Mason, the soldier who had once walked alone through ruins, now stood at the center of the first true hope between two worlds. Tariq chirped again, holding onto Mason's shirt with innocent trust. Mason smiled and whispered, "Don't worry, little guy. I'm here." He didn't know where this path would lead. Peace talks, alliances, new dangers, or new friendships. But he knew one thing with certainty. He would remain their protector, not because of duty, not because of war, but because sometimes, one small act of kindness could change the course of an entire galaxy.